Okay, let's get on to part 3 right here, okay? Cells and their DNA. We go back to this slide a moment ago and we talked about what is it that makes something a living thing? What makes something an organism, right? Well, two of the things that are common with all organisms is all organisms or all living things contain cells and they contain DNA. Okay? And a cell basically is the smallest level of organization that still maintains all the requirements of life. So you can have a bacteria, which is a living thing, right? And it is simply one cell. It is a unicellular. All right? Now, if you want to look at all living things and the cells that comprise all living things, we can divide those types of cells into two main categories: prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Now, prokaryotic cells are cells, and if you want to go back to the ancient Greek here, we want to look at two different aspects of this word, pro and karyote, okay? Pro literally means before, and karyote actually refers to kernel, okay? Like a small kernel, like a kernel of corn. Kernel actually is symbolic of the term nucleus. Okay, so prokaryotic cells are before the nucleus, so they do not contain a nucleus. Eukaryotic, however, the U portion refers to true. So this means true nucleus. And if you have a true nucleus, obviously that means you have a nucleus, and you also have all of the other organelles inside that cell that have specific functions. So, if you want to look at a picture of the two of these, right? That's kind of a cool pic because it shows the main differences between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell. Okay, so this is the huge eukaryotic cell. You can tell that it is much, much larger than the prokaryotic cell beside it. And you might even note right here that this may seem like a very new unit for you. That little guy right there is micro. So it's a micrometer. So if you go back to your days of like 7th grade and you remember King Henry died Monday drinking chocolate milk, right? You would have to draw 1, 2, and then you would have the micro there. So it's incredibly small, okay, as far as a metric unit is concerned. So this guy is tiny. This would be the size of the bacteria E. coli that lives inside your intestines right now. All right. Now, if you look at the comparison between the two, not only is the prokaryotic cell much smaller, it's also much less organized inside. If you look at the eukaryotic cell, you've got this huge nucleus, you've got this endoplasmic reticulum, you've got these lysosomes and other vesicles, this big mitochondria that's kind of making cellular energy. So these two are really quite different from one another on several different levels. Much smaller, much larger, less complex, more complex, single-celled. Obviously this is a single cell, but this is what we are all made up of as humans. Okay? So let's talk a little DNA. I mean, we all use the term DNA all the time, right? I mean, it's just part of who we are. So we say DNA like it's no big deal. Some of us may have no idea what DNA actually stands for. And it stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay? I want to take a moment and write that down. And I'm going to take this term and I'm going to decipher this for you. Okay? Deoxy actually means one less oxygen. And we only have to know that because not only do we contain DNA, but we also, as all organisms, contain RNA. And RNA actually refers to ribonucleic acid. So the difference between the two basically is that RNA contains another oxygen inside the molecule than deoxyribonucleic acid does. Now, the term ribo right here, this little segment, ribo refers to the sugar that's found inside deoxyribonucleic acid, and the sugar is called ribose sugar. And then nucleic actually refers to the fact that it's found inside the nucleus, An acid, if you remember from chemistry last year, an acid is anything that donates hydrogen ions. Remember that? It donates hydrogen ions, okay? Now, that may seem incredibly complex, and we're going to talk about that a little more later on, so don't get too hung up on that. I just want you to know that DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it is a genetic language, and DNA, all DNA, for eukaryotic cells is found inside the nucleus. For prokaryotic cells, the DNA is not found inside the nucleus because prokaryotic cells don't have a nucleus. Okay, so the genes that we have within our bodies, right? We can talk about genes all day long and say, I've got good genes, I've got bad genes, I have some genes. I mean, I've got some 7 genes. I don't know. When you look at this, genes actually are components of our heredity that make us who we are today. And the reason that we have brown eyes or blue eyes or black hair or brown hair or curly hair or straight hair is all about the DNA that we inherited from our parents. Okay? So DNA is the language of genetics. Now, DNA itself is made up of, and DNA is a molecule, right? So it's made up of nitrogen bases. And you may remember this from middle school. A, G, C, and T. You probably made those earrings, right? You had no idea what that meant. You were just like, I'm making earrings. That's really awesome. Well, those A's and C's and T's and G's that you put on there in the form of, I don't know, random colored beads, they actually stand for 4 nucleotides: adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. And I do want you to know this, at least for the quest, that adenine always pairs up with thymine and cytosine always pairs up with guanine. So if we take this little guy right here, like this is 1/2 of a DNA molecule, and we put in its matching or complementary nucleotide, it would be T, G, A, T, A, T, G, G, C, A. Are you with me? So if I gave you this sequence, could you determine the other side? I hope so. Got to remember that. Now, why is DNA important? Gosh, for so many reasons. But one of the things that your book likes to point out early on is that we are all impacted by various DNA decisions that are being made by scientists across the nation today. And one of those ways that we're always impacted is by genetically modified organisms. And genetically modified organisms is any organisms where you take genes out or put different genes in. Now, to have this make sense to you, right, you have to think about, like, I don't know, corn, right? We grow a lot of corn in this country. Now, if you want to grow corn that actually has a really strong stalk and has really sweet corn kernels and produces lots and lots and lots of ears of corn, I mean, if you're a farmer, isn't that what you want? Sometimes nature is a little slow to produce that type of organism, so as scientists, we like to help it along. So we will introduce various genes into a plant in its seed form that will produce a plant that's as close to perfect as we can get it, right? It's tall, it's strong, it resists drought, it doesn't need a lot of water, it resists bugs and other little guys that's going to eat it away. And we try to make the perfect corn. Well, this genetically modified organism, however, scares the dickens out of a lot of other people. And we'll talk about why that's scary a little later on when we get to the genetics unit. Okay? Now, the big thing that we're going to talk about once I get back to class, and it's not something I'm going to spend a lot of time on, is the diversity and what that means for biology. The hallmark of life is diversity. We just mentioned that there are 1.8 million different types of species on the planet that we've discovered, and scientists estimate that they still haven't discovered 200 million others. Diversity is very important for us as a planet. And if we really want to look at diversity, we have to try to figure out, how do we classify the different organisms? And you classify biodiversity, the diversity of the biological species, by a branch of biology called taxonomy. And it's a particular class of biology in which you organize species and organisms within those species into specific categories, okay? So it's a hierarchy. I mean, look at this. These are drawers of butterflies. You may never seen anything like this. I used to work at a science museum, and I could go upstairs and I could open up about 100 drawers of butterflies. And you may not even know that there are that many species of butterflies, but scientists who study butterflies do know. And there's got to be somebody who names them all. And there's got to be someone who names them all and classifies them based on what? How they appear? Their DNA? What kind of offspring they have? What they eat? What kind of proteins they make? How long they live? They have to ask themselves those sorts of questions. Those scientists are called taxonomists. And I will tell you that taxonomy has gotten rather confusing. If you go home and talk to your parents about biology, they're probably going to tell you, oh yeah, I remember biology. When we were in biology, we studied 5 kingdoms. And those 5 kingdoms were actually called Kingdom Animalia, Kingdom Plantae, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Protista, and Kingdom Monera. Right? So they studied 5 different kingdoms, but scientists actually came upon a brand new species that didn't fit in any one of those kingdoms back in the 70s. And they said, we don't even know where to put this thing. And it was a form of bacteria that just didn't work with anything else. It was weird bacteria. They found it in this volcanic trench in the bottom of the ocean floor, and it liked really, really high temperatures, and it liked really, really acidic environments, and nothing else fit with this, right? So scientists literally had to say, you know what, this whole 5 kingdom thing doesn't work for us anymore. We're going to have to come up with a whole new strategy here. We're going to have to come up with a whole new classification. So they came up with a classification that consists of only 3 domains of life. So there's 3 domains, overarching categories by which all living things can be put into. There's the bacteria domain, the archaea domain, and the eukarya domain. All right? Both of these contain nothing but bacteria. And bacteria fit into the category of being prokaryotic cells before the nucleus. So all these organisms do not have a nucleus. They are very simplistic. They are very, very prolific, but you don't know what half of them are. You can't see them without a microscope. You can't see them with a naked eye. Everything else in life fits into eukarya, which are totally outnumbered by these guys, by the way. Eukarya, true nucleus. All plants, all animals, all fungus, and all protist fit into this particular domain. That's kind of an important thing. So eukarya, all plants, all animals, all fungi, all protist fit into the true nuclei. And we're actually going to stop right there. That's a little complicated. I'm going to tell you right now that you'll go back and you'll look over this and you'll go, I don't know what Miss Gordon means by the fact that there are 3 domains. This is very confusing for me. I need you to remember though, okay? I need you to remember that when your parents took biology that there were 5 kingdoms, okay? 5 kingdoms. Kingdom Animalia, Kingdom Plantae, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Monera. Scientists had to come up with a whole new classification system. All right? That's all, folks. I will see you Tuesday, some of you. I will not see D period Tuesday. Hope you had a great weekend. I hope this makes sense to you. Please email me if it was confusing at all. Thanks, ladies.